Hey guys, welcome back, it's Meg. In light of the pruning and the first alpha build, I just wanted to go over how significant the changes are for the play and for the feel of the spec, as well as some additional feedback. After the summit, I had some pretty serious concerns, but we didn't get too much of a chance to play with them. Of course, now these are just leveling dungeons, and numbers are mostly irrelevant, so I was focused on how it felt to play with the limited content that we had access to. The largest difference in feel for me is the removal of Jadefire Stomp and the choice node between Vivify and Shaylin's Gift. For me, Jadefire Stomp was a very satisfying button to use. It was a good opener that basically readied you for your rotation, cooldowns, and allowed you to tag things with Mystic Touch. I liked how impactful it was, and I think without it, it feels very odd walking up to a pack and just pressing Tiger Palm or spinning Crane Kick. These abilities don't feel as impactful as an opener, and even though they do tag things with Mystic Touch, it just feels like something's missing. I will miss the minigame on positioning and planning movements, but we didn't really lose anything since Way of the Crane and Jadefire Teachings are just passives now. So in terms of power, it's unchanged, but the rotation feels a little bit lackluster, which I guess we should have expected from the pruning. For Vivify and for Shaylin's Gift, I was worried about not having a spot heal if I was specifically saving my clouds for something. This is a concern that we still have, and we're likely to not get a real answer until beta and more challenging testing begins, since leveling dungeons don't provide a good environment to test throughput or planned cooldown use. I know I said numbers mostly don't matter, but in this case, the power from Shaylin's Gift at 0 clouds should be outperforming Vivify in a 5-man setting, and the stacks would be considered bonus or extra healing. The main concern with this is stemming from our current use of Shaylin's Gift being reserved for scripted mechanics that are planning ahead for burst healing with active amps. But when this is also becoming our spot heal due to overriding Vivify, what do? I do think it's too early to say for sure on how this is supposed to work, as their goal for healing is to slow it down. Maybe there's so little healing outside of mechanics that Ancient Teachings will be our spot heal. Maybe we'll never need to go higher than a few stacks of Shaylin's Gift. Maybe Spirit Font is meant to be our spot healing. We don't really know, and again, we likely won't know until much further into the development process, but it's still worth bringing up. Defensive-wise, I do still miss Expel Harm. I very much relied on it to be my main source of self-healing, especially while on the move, in addition to the Chi Cocoon that it provided with Under Focus Tea. Losing Diffuse Magic really sucks, but everyone lost defensives, so I'm not super concerned with having less defensives. I am more concerned with the fact that Fortifying Brew is now our only active defensive. This ability has a history of being super weak. Even in the current game mode, we still die through it, and it's just not my favorite button in the world to have as our only option. So we'll see how that plays out, but I am slightly concerned with our survivability in that aspect, in addition to losing the Expel Harm. For new talents, Apex talents, and hero talents, I had a lot of concern about build cohesiveness, specifically with Vivify being our heal button, but Heart of the Jade Serpent from Conduit of the Celestials requiring Shaylin's Gift to proc it still. I was really hung up on that, but we did get confirmation that Heart of the Jade Serpent will be changing off of Shaylin's Gift as a trigger. We just don't know what the new one is yet. Pretty much any concern I had about builds kind of stepping on its own toes between Keys and Raid was just a matter of it being alpha and things are still being worked on. I do have concerns about the cooldown manager and tracking buffs and resources, specifically Vitality. The CD manager has not been updated for Mistweaver for alpha yet, but even after the pruning, we still have a lot of HOTS to track, as well as long-term stacking from things like Vanity and Shaylin's Gift, and the additional resource that still can't be tracked reliably from the buff working off of thresholds because it still freaks out on alpha. We haven't seen any updates for Master of Harmony as of the making of this video, so maybe things are changing, maybe we haven't seen it yet, but not being able to track all of our things is really high up on my list of concerns for Monk. Spirit Font was something that I was very concerned about, with a lot of the changes seeming to be placing heavy emphasis on Soothing Mist and on casting, but thankfully this has worked out pretty well. I did do a short video on Spirit Font already, but basically all the concerns I had with it have been dispelled, as it's a standalone passive heal. It can be played around slightly with force procs, but is largely passive healing, and it doesn't impede gameplay at all, and it provides DR and shields. I was worried about Way of the Crane and Way of the Serpent being overly polarizing, and I'm hoping to see some further iteration with these, specifically about Way of the Serpent. Talenting into either of these does not change your classification, so they are still a melee-based healer. That is something that we've been talking about forever at this point, and we'll probably always have this conversation. but Mistweaver remains a melee healer and we will get melee assignments, regardless of if you're Way of the Crane or Way of the Serpent. I do hope to see some updates with these. Way of the Serpent allows casting while moving during Soothing Mist and Crackling Jade Lightning, but if you're playing a Serpent-style healer, you likely don't take Jade Empowerment or Jadefire Teachings, which kind of renders the Crackling Jade Lightning part irrelevant. I would like to see instead Thunder Focus Tea given 2 additional interactions with Soothing Mist and Crackling Jade Lightning to allow them to be empowered abilities with the effect of being allowed to move at full movement speed during the next cast of Soothing Mist or Crackling Jade Lightning. Thunder Focus Tea had Vivify and Expel Harm removed from the empowered ability list, so there's some open spots. Being able to plan movement with Crackling Jade Lightning and Soothing Mist during heavy damage phases would greatly benefit both Mythic Plus and raid situations, and I would imagine for PvP as well. In addition to the Thunder Focus Tea changes, something else I would like to see addressed is the point allocation required for both Shaylin's Gift and for Life Cocoon. Life Cocoon takes 3 points to get it to where it is at in keys with Mist of Life, Chrysalis, and Common Coalescence. That's a big point investment for a pretty underwhelming external, especially for tanks. Almost every other healer only has to put 2 points into this, and they do get a great tank button out of it. I would like to see the same happen for Mistweaver. I do still think that being able to pick between a large shield or a small shield and a DR would be nice. I don't know how this affects PvP, to be completely honest, but being able to use a DR on my tank is something that I think that every healer should have at this point in the game. Even still, if they do not want to give us a DR, I do think that at a base level, even if nothing else with Cocoon changes, I believe that the absorb amount should be scaling off of the target's health rather than my own health, so that even without a DR, it's useful on tanks without being crazy on DPS. For Shaylin's Gift, I would like to see a couple of things swapped around. It was mentioned that Mist Dispersion is likely not going to make it through the alpha cycle, which is okay, so I would expect to see something else take its place, but still on that same Veil of Pride node. We have to take the base ability, a secondary effect, and a targeting effect. I would like to see this reduced down to 2 points, and replace the Shaylin's Gift node with what would be the Legacy of Wisdom version or the Emperor's Favor version, and then just have a second choice node below that being Veil of Pride and whatever is replacing Mist Dispersion. 3 points is a lot of investment to just get something to a consistent, usable state, and Life Cocoon and Shaylin's Gift both fall victim to that currently. So what has actually changed gameplay-wise? Not a lot. It feels pretty similar to what we play on live, especially in dungeons, with just a few parts missing, which we can attribute to the pruning. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future of the spec, and if Jadefire Stomp could return in some way, even passively, I would be really happy with where it's headed. I am excited to see how things develop through alpha and beta, and as always, leave your feedback. It's the best time to do it when things are still in development, so don't let your opinions go unheard.